Hello, this is Advanced Science Industries. Today I'm coming to you with episode 2 of Kerbal Space Program. In this episode I'm going to be launching the core module of the space station. Right now I'm in the map view on a top-down view of Kerbal, making sure that the already in orbit heavytug will line up and intercept with my core module once I launch it. I'm going to say that's about 15 degrees. I don't really know how much I should do, but this looks good enough. Let's try it. Now, as the physics engine tries really hard for the physics of this thing to load in, we launch. I always like to have the resource panel up in the upper right open, just to make sure that I don't end up accidentally running out of electric charge or monopropellant. I've done it enough times that it is necessary to keep it open, at least for me. So here I'm using the same launcher as I was before to launch the core module, which you can see precariously perched on the top of the launcher. It consists of 2 station cores hooked together by an SAS module and some size adapters. It also has 4 thermal generators, or radioactive thermal generators, whatever you call them, sitting up on the top there. That is just because I don't have the solar module there yet, and I want there to be enough electricity, just in case. So the core does not have any probe or any sort of control device, so I will be essentially putting it up there as close as I can to the heavytug and then moving the heavytug to the core, not the other way around. So here I'm starting the gravity turn at around 11 kilometers. Everything is going smoothly. I have remembered to reduce the throttle so that my mainsail engines there at the bottom don't overheat, as I always forget to do. Coming up just past the atmosphere, and my 2 outer tanks have run out of fuel, so I eject them and continue on with just the main thruster stage. Now here I have 2 approaches, or 2 intercepts, and I'm just circularizing my orbit right now, seeing if I can get it as close as I can to the orbit of the heavytug. Right here I was just trying to see if I could burn retrograde and manage to get an intercept any closer, which turned out not to be the case. Not a great idea to do that, but my orbit is a little bit too tall, at about 4,000 meters higher than it should be, but all is good and well, and I can adjust it later. Here I am trying to make that little salmon-colored intercept down in the bottom, get as close as I can, just so I can try and do that now instead of later. And I'm already a little bit further out from the orbit, so that should be a good thing. So when you have 2 craft that you're trying to rendezvous, and they're relatively close, like the heavytug, it is behind me, and I want it to catch up with me. So what I need to do is make my orbit larger than it, farther out from the surface of Kerbal. And that way, it will take longer for my craft to orbit than it will for the heavytug. And based on that, I can then lower my orbit when I get to a point where it is close enough, and I have an intercept right there. So you can see there off in the distance was the target marker for the heavytug. which has now passed us. So I'd actually want my orbit to be lower than the heavy tug at this point. And there goes me forgetting to turn the throttle down for the mainsail engine and it exploding. Luckily, it doesn't take the fuel tank with it and destroy my entire ship. So it wasn't a great loss, although I did lose some fuel. But I still have enough to get there. So here I'm messing around with my maneuver nodes and trying to get a close intercept if I can. Now this is actually my very first rendezvous in Kerbal Space Program. I've done quite a bit of missions. I've made it decently far around, not too far. I haven't made it to Dooney yet, but most of what I do goes into designing the ships themselves rather than actually launching them, because when I launch them I fail and end up crashing them into things or sadly killing Kerbals. But given this is my first docking maneuver and intercept, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I'm trying my best to play around with things and get my intercept as close as possible, which I don't seem to be accomplishing very well. There comes a point where it will not get any closer than the intercept already is, and that appears to be 3.3 kilometers, which is a pretty decent intercept. I could work with that. I could burn towards the target and after knowing out the velocity difference, but I want to take it a little further. I want to get 0.1 kilometers and get that as close as I possibly can, just to make things a whole lot easier to account for the error that I will obviously have. If I set it up for 0.1 kilometers and then end up messing up on my burn, I can still get that relatively close. So here I'm just doing an inclination change and trying to get things as good as I can. Still trying to work at that intercept. I really should have practiced this off camera. It's not working out too well. But it is getting closer. 0.7 kilometers, that's good. 0.1 kilometers. I will take that intercept right there. Now I need to burn towards my destination, which should be a little bit north. Thinking backwards. Should be a little south because that's the way that I'm adjusting my inclination as well as doing my burn. Alright, here we go, lining up for the burn. A very small burn, just 27.9 meters a second. Just 1 second of burn time. I would say it's probably a little bit more than that, 2 or 3 seconds, based on this craft and how I've used it before. But we'll see. I'm going to line this up as close as I can, check on my intercepts, make sure that they're still pretty good. No, it looks like I really need to make that first intercept, because if I miss, my second intercept is quite a bit further away. So I'm just going to time warp ahead here and get a little closer to the burn node. You can see my core right here is chasing the heavy tug, because my orbit is very similar, but I think it's a little bit lower. Okay, I'm completing the burn. Fairly close. It's not great, but you know, that's what I got. 0.9 kilometers. See, I planned it really close, and it turns out I did have a little bit of error, but it's fine because because I planned that close and I had room to spare. Here I am just trying to fix it a little bit if I can. That looks... Not sure what it's doing there blinking like that, but I saw 0.1 kilometers, so that looks pretty good. See if it stays that way when the intercept stops blinking. A little bit low on RCS here. I'm wasted a little bit more than half of it. So I lined up my ship with north, and well, I didn't really need to do that. I had plenty of time. But here I am racing around quite a bit further away from the heavy tug, but we'll meet up eventually at that intercept. Should be able to see it now. Depends on how far I am. No, maybe not. Okay, I should definitely be able to see it now. Yeah, that's 1.5 kilometers away. That's close enough for it to load in. See the physics engine taking a little sigh of pain right there. Here I am looking for it. I can't manage to find it. Yeah, it is set as my target. Oh, there it is. Just had to turn around. Okay, well there it is. You can see it loaded in and getting a little closer. I'm realizing that I'm moving relatively quick, and I need to hurry up and rotate towards the retrograde of the ship there. And I completely went the wrong direction and lined up with the prograde. Now I just passed it, so I'm gonna hurry up and try and turn around, get closer to it. First step, of course, is to know the velocity. Once you get that velocity underneath the target on the nav ball and down to 0.1, 0.0 if you're lucky, you start to burn towards the target. And you just want to get yourself going at a modest little speed. You can always time warp if it'll let you. Well, I mean, obviously it will, but you can set up a small speed of 1 to 5 meters a second once you've known your velocity with retrograde. Just aim towards the target and burn, get yourself some velocity, and then you can time warp to get on over there. But I wouldn't recommend time warping if you're less than 300 meters or so, just so that you have plenty of time to react and don't end up messing up like I do. So here I'm going a little fast, and I figure I've got some monopropellant. There's already some on the heavy tug. I might as well waste it here. See if I can know lots of velocity using translation on the RCS thrusters. Getting down pretty slow, about 1.5 meters a second relative to the target. Here I am burning, well, not completely facing the pointer target on the nav ball, the big pink circle. The center of that points towards the target. Okay, here I'm switching to the heavy tug, and I don't have my target set, so I can't actually figure out where it is. There's the core over there. Everything seems to check out on the heavy tug. It is still in working condition. So here with the heavy tug, I'm going to actually leave the core doing what it's doing and then burn the heavy tug over towards it. And I'll just do the rest of the maneuvering with the heavy tug. Which I should probably have known out my velocity, but it's decently close. I can manage. I switched over to the reverse engines that are facing the target. Until I get a little closer, and then I'm going to burn away from the target, see if I can nail down that velocity. Unfortunately, because I'm beneath the target, when I got closer to it, the target obviously went above me. So when I burned, I wasn't nulling out the velocity. Instead, I was actually creating velocity in a different direction. So here I'm nulling it out by pointing at the retrograde marker. I want to get this down as low as I can. It's just a waiting game of trying to get things lined up, really. You just got to get close to the target, know out your velocity, shoot towards it, Do the same thing over and over again until you get yourself close enough to maneuver with RCS. Or if you're really skilled, just use the engines on your ship to actually get you there, which is quite tough. Unless you have a setup like this one here, where I have forward and backward facing nuclear engines on an action group. So here I'm coming in for the final approach. Got all sorts of monopropellant to waste. Even though it would have been a much better idea to just use my engines for half a second, but, you know, whatever. So here we are coming in, about 100 meters, getting relatively close. It is kind of dark, but if you look carefully, you can see the core there, with its scaffolding, as I want to call it, the ascent stage still attached. I managed to not accidentally decouple it this time, so that's good. I figure I can transfer some of the fuel from that into my heavytug and just top it off to the brim. It's not very much, but you know, why not? I have the fuel to waste. Can also steal some of the RCS from that tank as well. So here I am taking my core and pointing it towards the north-south direction so that I can easily dock the heavytug with it. I should have done that much earlier, but you know, this is a space program. We don't know what we're doing. Do things on the spot. I'm just waiting for the heavytug to slam into this thing, because somehow it left the engines on, or you know, whatever. But luckily it doesn't. Alright. Switch back over to the heavytug. We're getting relatively close now. Probably about 70 or so meters, a little less. Oh no, never mind. We're actually running away from it. And then it becomes a game of back and forth, trying to get myself closer and lined up with it. So this is where it's kind of an issue, because I am a little bit below the core itself, and I need to dock on the top there on that uppermost docking port. I could dock on the side, but I figure it's more out of the way to put the heavytug on the farthest point from it. Here I am nulling out the velocity just a little bit more. There, that's close. Not even really moving all that much. We are getting a little closer though. Like I said, I've not docked before. This is my very first time actually doing this. So, excuse me if I'm being a little slow and incompetent. I want to make sure that I don't end up blowing everything up my very first try. Well, technically this is my second try, if you will. The heavytug that you see here is actually different from the one that I launched in the first episode. Actually, no, it's not. Getting ever so closer. Here I'm lining up the heavytug on a north to south direction, and I'm going to use RCS to push myself the rest of the way there. So if you don't know, you can switch to docking mode using the button on the left, the bottom left corner, and then you can use the WASD, Shift, and Control keys to use the translation on the RCS thrusters, just as you normally would with I, J, K, L, H, and N. But instead you're using the regular controls, and it can make things a little easier. So what I find is easy to do for this is to just burn in one direction at a time, or at least cancel out one direction at a time, so that you're basically moving in just one axis at a time, getting closer and closer. That just makes it a little easier, so you don't have to jumble around the keys and press everything at once. Which is an exception that I make right here because I'm moving towards it and also burning upwards, but that's kind of necessary so I don't crash into it. If you look at Newski Kerman down there in the bottom right corner, he seems relatively scared. Probably because he's been up here for days and probably about a week or something, just alone. Actually, never mind, he's only been up here for 4 hours, as it says in the upper left corner in the mission time. But, you know, he's probably hungry, and there's no restroom facilities on this heavy tug, so he's probably gotta go. But his needs aside, he has a mission to complete, and that's what he will do, scared or not. So here I'm just switching to chase camera mode, which makes things a little bit more exciting and also provides a little bit better perspective when docking. Coming in on the last 50 meters here. Just trying to cancel out my horizontal velocity relative to the target. See if I can get that a little lower, and then I'll burn towards it and down. Now that I think about it, I probably should have included docking lights of some sorts on the core or the heavy tug, which I really didn't bother to do, even though eventually when I have this thing assembled I'm going to have thousands and thousands of electric charge units. However, I might set that up later. Maybe I'll have a special little module that's a light unit or something. I don't know. It's not really necessary, but it can make things a little bit more interesting looking. I'll have to see how that will work out when I have this thing assembled, because it's going to be pretty laggy with all the parts that I have. At least I'm assuming it will. Somehow I've managed to not really get myself any closer, but it does appear to look a little bit more lined up. I've managed to get myself further away, but it's okay because I'm closing the gap now. There we go, just time warp a little bit closer, about 20 meters away. They're coming in nice and slowly. Now I just have to adjust each different direction. For some reason that doesn't work. Setting the actual docking port as a target. So here I'm lining up my ship north to south, and yeah, it looks like the core is not quite lined up north to south either, so I'm going to have to adjust that before I dock. But let me just try to get a little bit closer before I do that. See, the chase cam is good for this, and I think the orbital cam does something similar. We can have a top-down perspective on the whole situation. So, here we come in for the very final approach. We're relatively close. Just please wait for the spontaneous explosion that is a hallmark of Kerbal Space Program. As soon as they get within a meter of each other, they'll both explode. Here I just changed my horizontal direction just to line that up. And check on the vertical direction, needs to go up a little bit. Need to get a little closer. here we come in for the final approach. Just waiting for those magnets to start pulling me in. Oh, there we go. We are docked. The core module and the heavytug are now attached in orbit together. They continue their dance of victory across the sky of Kerbal. Advanced Science Industries reminds you to always look towards the sky.